One one of the key pillars of the Brexit campaign, even no, the very argument for Brexit that the Brexiteers advanced from Daniel Hannan to Patrick Minford. Remember, Daniel Hannan was the brain of Brexit. If you had a Brexit question, Daniel Hannan had the answer. And then, of course, you had Patrick Minford, who at the time, when he was initially announced, was the Brexit economist. If you've got an economic question, then Patrick's the man with the answer for that. But over time of the, referendum, should we say, Patrick was sort of wheeled backwards from the front because they sort of realized that actually what Patrick was really saying was, the quiet part out loud, that a lot of UK manufacturing and the entire UK manufacturing base would have to crumble. UK farmers would be almost swept away and turning us into an import-only country, transforming the nation into something that no one really ever wanted, and putting forward some really bizarre economic ideas that, quite frankly, no one would ever seriously vote for. Hence why he was sort of, wheeled back. But one of the big announcements that they always took on was that we would get this absolutely amazing trade deal from America that would make staying in the single market completely ridiculous. That's how good this trade deal was going to be. And of course, Truss has recently flown over to America recently, and she has now admitted that, this fantastic trade deal, which was going to sort of make staying in the single market completely stupid, isn't coming anytime soon. So, as always, before we go diving into this news, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link to Buy Me Coffee. Buy Me Coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So, over we go to The Guardian reporting on this with the title of "No US Trade Deal on the Horizon," admits Truss as she flies in for Biden's meeting. Britain may not strike a free trade deal with the US for years, Liz Truss has admitted ahead of her first bilateral meeting with Joe Biden. The new Prime Minister conceded that talks were unlikely to start in the medium term as she travelled to New York for her first foreign trip since entering Downing Street. In a move likely to disappoint Brexiteers, she downplayed expectations that any trade agreement was imminent amid concerns that overpromising but then failing to get talks off the ground would damage her nascent administration. On the plane to the US, Truss admitted to reporters that, quote, "There aren't currently any negotiations taking place with the US, and I don't have any expectation that they are going to start in the short to medium term." And mostly, by the way, this is because of what is going on in Northern Ireland. America is very, very protective of the Good Friday Agreement, being one of the, core architects in helping to broker that agreement. So they don't want to see that gone either, because as we've always said, if you do this, Brexiteers, if you push ahead with your crazy ideas, where are you going to put a border? Because you've got to have a border. You can either have a customs union, which means no borders at all, but then you have to sort of follow the EU's rules, which is unthinkable, of course, to Brexiteers, or you have to have one in the Irish Sea, or you have to have one between the North and the Republic of Ireland. But of course, you can't have that because that explicitly is ruled out in the Good Friday Agreement. So, we've been saying this since day one, but they still don't understand it. But there you go. Anyway, back to it. It is the first time the government has conceded that there is virtually no chance of getting the agreement on early bilateral trade deals with the US, Britain's biggest trading partner, despite it being coveted by the Brexit supporters as one of the major potential benefits of leaving the EU. Instead, the new Prime Minister has said her priorities would be joining the Trans-Pacific Trading Partnership of 11 countries, including Australia, Canada, and Singapore, as well as striking deals with the Gulf states and India. That's not going to happen. Why are the members of the TTP, of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, going to alter the rules to allow a country that is on the other side of the world and not even in the Pacific to alter the rules to benefit that one country? It ain't gonna happen. And if we do end up joining, we ain't gonna see any benefits. As we've seen already with a lot of these trade deals that have been done, they haven't been beneficial to the UK. India is incredibly unlikely given how protectionist they are of their market. And the Gulf states, from what we can see, we are basically abandoning any talks of saying, well, we're going to have a really good focus on workers' rights and using trade deals to advance, these types of things around the world. Well, not for the Gulf states, apparently, as we've heard recently. Anyway, back to it. She added that her number one focus in talks with Biden at the UN on Wednesday would be global security, especially working with the US and European partners to deal with the Russian aggression in Ukraine. Truss's relations with the US president have already been strained by her threats as foreign secretary to rip up the post-Brexit trading agreements in Northern Ireland, and Biden has warned that the peace that it provides should not be undermined by the row and has been reluctant to strike a trade deal with the UK as a result, as we just said. UK officials have tried to decouple these two issues and tried to highlight the mini trade deals signed with individual states, including Indiana and North Carolina, to boost transatlantic trade. And of course, as we've said, these aren't trade deals. They're just memorandums of understanding. They don't even act the same way. And the idea that these would, quote, boost trade doesn't really seem to sort of pan out. At the White House last year, Boris Johnson's hopes for an early post-Brexit trade deal were dashed after Biden made it clear and publicly that it was not on the cards. The former Prime Minister was then left talking up the solid incremental steps achieved on the trade after the US starting allowing imports of UK lamb for the first time in decades. In contrast, former President Donald Trump has promised a, quote, massive trade deal to support Brexit, although Washington's insiders have warned that he would have expected concessions in return. During Truss's two-day trip to New York, she will hold a series of bilateral meetings with other key leaders, including the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and the French President Emmanuel Macron. It was the first official meeting between the pair since Truss's comments during the Tory leadership race on the, quote, jury's out comments on whether Macron was friend or foe. And it appeared to be a softening of her stance. Truss told reporters that she wanted to have, quote, a constructive relationship with France, working with Macron on migration, Brexit, energy security, and Ukraine. However, later aid suggested that a rapprochement was not on the cards and that the Prime Minister had simply wanted to be diplomatic on the day of the Queen's funeral. So, as we can already see, a key promise of Brexit unraveling before us. And remember, this was a key promise. Do not underestimate how much this was pushed by the Brexiteers. Because as Daniel Hahn even said, this trade deal would be so good, it would make staying in the single market completely ridiculous. This was how this trade deal was sold. Not only that, if Trump was still president and we got this trade deal, we would have had to make such significant concessions. We would have almost been, from what we at least know or understand, the Brexiteers would have gladly sold and capitulated to Washington when they were so against capitulating and not taking any rules from the EU. They were somehow fine in taking rules and regulations from the US. So much for all that sovereignty argument then, right? But as always, thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all